For God's sakes, don't shoot. Those were the words I heard April 3rd, 1886.
What do you get when you combine live theater, regional history, and a beautiful Texas burial ground? Why, the Oakwood Cemetery Saints and Sinners Tour, of course. Every October, the North Fort Worth Historical Society chooses interesting characters from Oakwood Cemetery's residents to bring to life, so to speak, through well-researched performances. Unfortunately, if you're watching this in 2020, then I have to tell you, there is no Saints and Sinners Tour this year. I'm sure you can guess why. But that's why I made this video. I've been going to the Saints and Sinners Tour every year that I've been able to since 2015, and I've taken so many photos. And I forgot, but I'd even taken a little bit of video here and there. So I just thought, why not? Since we can't go to the Saints and Sinners Tour this year, I'll put together a video and a little bit of like a consolation prize. And also maybe it will encourage people to check it out in years to come, because I love this event. I think it's great. And I hope you enjoy this little video that I put together for you today. Now, I often say that historic cemeteries are open-air museums. And that's what I love about the Oakwood Cemetery Saints and Sinners Tour. It really brings history to life. I wish every cemetery was like this, at least once or twice a year. The monologues are, they're often quite funny, and some will bring tears to your eyes. The walking tour itself, it takes about an hour and a half, and you can easily spend another hour or two though, so, just devote your whole day to this. It's really worth it. Because afterwards and even beforehand, there will be people in costumes and you can talk to them. They'll be very knowledgeable. There's usually a band there playing live bluegrass music, and they have some historic instruments like a hurdy-gurdy, things like that. And of course, you're going to want to explore the beautiful burial grounds. This is a gorgeous cemetery. I do have some other videos about it if you want to see. I'll put the links below, or maybe I'll use those cards that YouTube is always telling me to do that I always forget about in my videos. Anyway, since Fort Worth is where the West begins, these tours often give you a glimpse into Wild West history. You're going to learn about cattle barons, oil men, gunslingers, cowboys. There's even a section called Bartender's Row where saloon workers are buried, and I do feature that in another video too. There's also Soiled Doves Row. A soiled dove, that was I guess a euphemism they used back in the day to describe a quote-unquote fallen woman, a prostitute, what we would call a sex worker today, but back then, a soiled dove. That is a plot where there's some brothel workers and some madams. And I talk about them a bit in my new book, 6 Feet Under Texas, in fact. One year, I learned how to play Pharaoh. Now, Pharaoh is the card game that they are actually playing when you watch Wild West movies. They're not playing poker. I mean, maybe sometimes they are, but Pharaoh was really the game back then, and it's very unusual. And, oh my God, just check out these guys' mustaches. I love them. That is a year-round commitment to history, I'll say. And of course, this guy, oh my gosh, he was great. I love his hearse. Those black ostrich feathers, it was really cool. Also, I found while I was looking around, I found some brief video clips that I took during some Saints and Sinners tours from the years past, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I'm glad I took these clips. Of course, now I wish I'd taken longer clips, but I'll just make a little montage for your enjoyment.
For God's sakes, don't shoot. Those were the words I heard April 3rd, 1886. But before I tell you what happened that day, I probably ought to tell you I was born J.J. Fulford, John James Fulford, 1800 in 53 from Georgia.
Cowboys would come into town, and the saloons would be wide open, and so would the brothels. And you could hear those cowboys hooping and hollering and singing and shooting off their guns.
I came to Fort Worth in 1880, worked on the Bradley farm. Then in 1883, I hired on with the city as a carpenter. Stayed there till 1885 when I became a Fort Worth police officer for $60 a month.
Wait, make way. Oh, Zella, sweetheart. I've looked for you so long. I've been dragging these chains around for 100 years. Nobody to talk to except Jacob Marley. And I finally found you, and we can be together.
Rufus, what are you doing here? I told you I never wanted to see you again, and I meant forever. And you know, 100 years in the ground has not done you any favors.
Zella, that's not nice at all.
Valve handles threw the switches the wrong way, removed the coupling pins between the cars, piled railroad ties up on the rails, anything they could do to cause general mayhem and potentially derailments. This was not a good time for Fort Worth.
Wouldn't pay up, though, was Luke Short. On the night of February 8th, 1887, little Luke and I were upstairs at the White Elephant Saloon. We were up there gambling, honestly, of course, and the White Elephant only admitted gentlemen gamblers.
Well, I did say, after he kept saying he was going to kill me, he was going to shoot me, I said, you don't have the nerve to shoot me. You're not game enough. And he shot me through the
I
side.
immigrated to America, New York in 1873. Then traveled by rail car to Texas Galveston. There in Texas.
Agreement if I printed up some handbills and listed my product and various things that I carried, some of the spices and the different chili mixes, and I also put on there that the chilies and
I'm William D. Billy Poole. I was the last of 18 bartenders to be buried here. And
He-Man types of entertainment. They drank beer and whiskey and shot their guns. They gambled with the cards and the dice. They danced with the women, and at the end.
Whether you go before or after your tour, make sure you visit Oakwood's chapel. Not only will you see some really gorgeous stained glass windows, but they have a rectangular door in the floor, for lack of, I guess it's like a trap door essentially. Now this is where caskets, which were stored in the basement where they had a morgue of sorts, these would be moved upstairs by the means of this clever kind of elevator system that they had. And it's naturally the basement's a lot cooler, so it would keep the bodies fresher. This was really quite innovative and interesting. When you come to the Saints and Sinners tour, you'd better stop by my table and say hi. I mean, not in 2020. I will only be there in spirit this year. But of course, I'm talking about next year and the years after. I am a member of the North Fort Worth Historical Society, and you can usually find me sitting in the shade, selling books, and enjoying a really fun day at Oakwood Cemetery. We've been joined by my cat, Miss Otis. Hey, Miss Otis, say hi to everybody. Meow meow. Well, one thing I wanted to mention is that, you've probably heard that John Smith is the most common name in America. Well, I sometimes joke that Oakwood Cemetery is like the John Smith of cemetery names, because this has happened to me several times. I'll give a talk about cemeteries, and then afterwards some really neat person will come up and will start sharing a story, and they'll say, hey, have you been to Oakwood Cemetery? I'll be like, yeah, sure. And then they'll start describing like this really fascinating monument, and I'll be going, wow, how did I miss that? Or how did I not know so-and-so famous person was buried in Oakwood? And then that's when they let me know they're talking about like Oakwood Cemetery in Vermont, or Washington State or Nebraska. So I'm curious, is there an Oakwood Cemetery in your town or nearby? Because like I said, it's kind of like the John Smith of cemetery names. I'm trying to stay out of the way so you can admire my cat. She's pretty neat. With Halloween approaching, I thought I would share my book, Paranormal Texas. This is a book where I did a whole bunch of historic research about places that report haunted activity. My most recent book, hot off the press, it's called 6 Feet Under Texas. And yeah, you've got 50 chapters in here, just chock full of really interesting, quirky, like really interesting stories behind them. So once again, you can plan a fun little road trip. And this, especially now, it's easy to do social distancing when you are in a historic cemetery. Just saying. All of my books, back here, all of my books are available on Amazon. But if you would like to get a free book that I offer, then I invite you to go to my website, tuisnider.com, and you can download the book there. So that's my gift to you. Thanks again for checking me out. Happy reading.